though acting IG Masengeli, even though now there's a newly sworn in IG,
yes,
you know, so effectively from today he almost ceases from carrying that liability,
yes,
because it was the office that was actually in court and not him in person, and he might have underestimated the legal obligation of the office responding to court summons, and obviously failed to turn up in court, and then being that he was the acting IG at that particular time, he then takes the liability of the legal liability of not showing up, and so he goes on record, Masengeli, as a public officer in contempt of court.
He's actually supposed to have started serving his term today.
Absolutely, and he has I don't know what the case is, but he has a chance of appealing that, obviously, to ask for stay order. So next time the case continues, then we're going to have the new Kanja, the new IG, Mr. Kanja, who then has to respond to the very issues that particular office has been requested to do in as far as the case is concerned. But clearly a very bad example of what a leader should be, because Fred, I've said it many times, and on this show and elsewhere, that when you see countries that have collapsed, Fred, usually it's because the judicial system has failed to stamp its authority.
Yes.
And the moment you have the judicial arm of government not being able to solve issues, then the citizens then choose to take the law in their hands, and that's why you have all these countries that have collapsed. It's not an area or a place where we'd love to see our country, and that can only start when our leaders, particularly those with the highest responsibility of ensuring that there's law and order, can at least begin to respect the courts.
Because now, if Masengeli himself, I mean, then acting as the Inspector General of Police, does not obey law and order, James, this becomes a very tricky situation, because this is happening at a time when we saw police literally mishandle a student, and it was inhuman. They beat him up, and then an officer just throws a tear gas canister at his head.
It's unfortunate.
It just paints a bad picture of the police.
I have said it before, and I think I will not tire to say it again, that some people think that they are above the Constitution of Kenya and they are above the rule of law, but it is unfortunate quite that the former President Uhuru Kenyatta also thought he was above the Constitution. Probably they think that Article 143 gives them immunity against prosecution while in office. That gives them a certain, say, air of importance, and they feel like they are not citizens like the rest of us. He just has a different mandate, a different power, a different authority, but he's still Kenyan, still a citizen like we all are, and none of them is above the law. And they have learned this from the president. Even the current president,
they've learned, the Inspector General and all the government officials have learned from the president.
Everyone who practices bad manners and is into politics, either as a state officer, as a civil servant, or as an active leader, has learned this from someone, and mostly has to be from the guy at the top. During Uhuru's
but the guy at the top, the current guy at the top, has, in as far as, maybe I'm wrong, in as far as court orders and rulings are concerned, he's behaved really well, hasn't he?
You see, we cannot constrict William Ruto to the current time. William Ruto has been flaunting court orders all through his political life. We cannot limit his life to the 2 years he's been president. He's been dismissing court orders when he was deputy president. He's on record saying that they are going to revisit what the judiciary gave as a verdict in the 2017 case. And he's been summoned in court before and not appeared. And these guys are learning from him the same way they learned from Uhuru Kenyatta. A president dictates the mood that is across the country. When you have a president who hates corruption, that mood traverses the whole country. When you have a president who respects the constitution and the rule of law like Kibaki was, that mood transcends through the country, through all the state officers, through all politicians, through all leaders, through all civil servants, and to the common mwananchi. We have a president who has a disrespect and disregard for the courts. Say, for example, how he has gone in court innumerably over the housing levy after the courts pronounced themselves clearly on that matter. He does not respect the courts, and if he has a way of say, going behind the loops of the constitution. He will go behind that. And I'm even scared he will probably give himself another term limit. I'm very scared.
That's not possible in the current Kenya. Let me ask you, Ngaire,
Yes.
do you think the official, first and foremost, he says the government officers have learned from the president. Do you think the current president has been a bad example to the rest of government in terms of obeying court orders?
You know, President William Ruto is not a stranger in courts ever since he was a member of parliament, and these are public cases that we are all familiar with. He has been there on land cases, the Ngong land case. He's been there on his own hotel, and the issue of its, the validity of the title of that particular property, and many other court cases that he's been there, where he used to actually appear in person. It's only when he became deputy president is when he failed to be able to appear to that. So before that, you could say he responded positively to any of the allegations, because that's what you would call, until there's a final judgment with the High Court. And so, in as far as the law and order is concerned, he is not a stranger to the court system, and so, and Kenyans have a history of him because he's been a public servant for 30 years and not just 3 days. And so we could say that there's a history of how he has been up until this day. But maybe in the last couple of years, particularly when in the last 10 years, ever since he became deputy president, and he's still been in court on many issues as well, you might say that he hasn't quite responded positively in as far as court cases are concerned, maybe by virtue of his stature.
But he has had representation in court.
He has had representation in court, but there are moments where the accused, especially when it comes to that moment when you're giving testimonies and things like that, the particular person, because the Kenyan Constitution does not at any one moment excuse any human being of not being liable to answer for any allegations that you're supposed to answer in any court system. And that includes the deputy president at that particular time. Maybe as president now, he has a bit of immunity in as far as criminal charges are concerned, but they are only suspended until when he becomes a citizen again, which can be any time. Anytime Freddy can become a citizen of Kenya.
Yes.
And so maybe upon that particular time is when he can be able to do that. But maybe just to drift further is that President William Ruto is just a representation of the public servant. And I think just to agree with my brother here, James, is that we've had instances where senior public officials, particularly political leaders, those who are largely pro-regime, that have continuously been in contempt of court and be able to openly defy court orders. A case which then clearly creates an attraction of the country heading towards anarchy. Because if the leaders who've been given the mandate to lead the people do not respect the courts, you just have one last shot, the people to also emulate that, and you have no country. And you saw on June 25th that it's possible for law and order to collapse. And
very fast.
Very fast. And like we've said, it was a narrow escape for government and also those elected officials. Because had it been sustained for a day or two or three, we'd be talking of something else. I think my prayer, even as I conclude on this topic, is that leaders that are being given an opportunity to be able to serve Kenyans, particularly leaders who are supposed to be role models, because we are who our leaders are. If our leaders fail to be able to respect the rule of law, then me and James and you have no business following it.
And it also happened in Parliament. The CS Treasury had been summoned by Senate.
Absolutely, and there was a very dramatic response from Kajwang, which made me really laugh. That in the last, just having been a cabinet minister maybe for 3 or 4 weeks, John Mbadi has already emulated the behavior of this government, and they have strained him that he has cut weight. It was a very funny, you heard him, I don't know if you heard what Kajwang was saying, that our brother Mbadi has even lost weight in 3 weeks just because of the stress and pressure that they're giving him. But you see, that's exactly what I'm alluding to, Fred.
Yes.
I think those that are in leadership owe us a responsibility to lead the way in as far as respect for law and order is concerned.
In fact, what you're saying is very true, because I remember during our time, my dad, who was a teacher, would not speak negative at home concerning any teacher.
Yes.
Because he knew, and I saw it in some of the kids when we were growing up, where their parents would trash their teachers down, all this, and these children would become so disrespectful of their teachers. So what we are being taught by our seniors is what the juniors ultimately end up doing. University lecturers have been are now on strike, and what the students have learned is that if what's good for the goose is also good for the gander. So they've learned from their lecturers.
Yeah, and I wish when we learning stuff, we would learn the good stuff. Learning activism, learning social agitation, learning to stand for your rights, learning industrial action when it is necessary. This being passed on the next generation is something I would commend. I hope I wish we learn this new stuff and this good stuff, but not learn the evils. We have vices in this country that we should not pass on to the next generation. Tribalism is a vice. Corruption is a vice. Ethnicity is a vice. I hope impunity is a vice. I hope we do not learn their bad manners. I hope we learn the good, and that would put us in a better position as the incoming generation to deliver a better Kenya for ourselves, for our children, and for those that will come after us.
Something very interesting has been happening in the country, and mostly to do with central Kenya, talking about good, bad manners. Now it's full-blown. It's full-blown. The gloves are off, and it's bare knuckles. And it's rather evident that it's now Kindiki versus the Deputy President Gachagua. And I remember in the course of this week, I've seen delegation after delegation, MCAs. I even saw some 3,000 Jurinjekes. I don't even know who those guys represent, but anyway, some old men appeared claiming to be in Jurinjeke.
Yeah.
And backing Kithure Kindiki against the Deputy President. And we are seeing, and what they are speaking is a split within the Mount Kenya region.
Fred, it's not the first time that we've had a rift in the mountain. When we first had our multi-party politics, 1992, and the late, great Kenneth Matiba from the great county of Murang'a, who was a favorite at that particular time in terms of taking on President Moi at that particular time. And you had a sure bet of actually going to clinching that seat. Remember that time, even when eventually we had the elections and then there was an outcome, so he had almost 1.5 million votes or something like that. President Kibaki, who had been nowhere throughout the years of agitation, in that particular leading towards the multi-party democracy, then largely just an obedient vice president of President Moi at that particular time, suddenly shows up the last minute, forms a party, and he also collected 1 million votes. You put President Kibaki's, the late President Kibaki's votes, and then merge it with the Kenneth Matiba. That would have been almost 2.5 million votes, and Nyayo would have gone home. You understand? That was a 50-50%, a clear rift in the mountain. That's why I've always tried to do away with this debate of the Western region being, everybody saying Western is divided. If there was ever a division that is on record, that you can go see the numbers and see this is actually a split record, it has been in the mountain. And even in the subsequent elections that we had 2002, remember, Mount Kenya still had two big candidates. President Uhuru Kenyatta was on the ballot, and he was going again head-to-head against President Kibaki. And President Uhuru Kenyatta still walked away with almost 2 million votes, I think 1-point-something million votes. That's a big number of votes. And a big chunk of them largely was from his region as well. There was a big split. It has always been like that. And so Honorable Kindiki Kithure with the CS and Rigathi Gachagua, theirs is not new. It started
but the form that it's taking, it's Mount Kenya West. You have the Meru, the Ebus, the Tarakanidis.
Even the debate that was there when President William Ruto was now working on choosing his running mate was still a debate about East and West. And the debate had been that West has always had, remember West has already had 3 presidents. It has also had 3 vice presidents. You understand? President Kibaki, Murumbi, and Karanja were all vice presidents, and even Saitoti was largely a mountain guy. So the debate was that even what led to the vote that people allude to, that there was a vote that the MPs voted so that one that Kindiki emerged on who should deputize William Ruto. That was the subject. I once had Silvana Sosoro somewhere where we were seated, and we were saying that was the subject of the purpose of why even Kindiki still got majority of the votes, because people are saying, look, West has already produced a president and deputy president for a long time. it's only sensible that if somebody is to come from the mountain, then he has to come from the east. So that is not a new debate between Honorable Kindiki Kithure and Rigathi Gachagua. It was there even towards the last election. And I think that remains the debate even today.
Do you think it's going to eat the mountain region when it comes to the 2027 election? Because now the rift is now apparent, and it's this early. James?
Yeah. Oh, this thing about Gachagua and Kindiki has been for some time. It was just on the sidelines, and I have not forgotten how there was a rift between who should be deputy president between Kindiki Kithure and Gachagua. So Kindiki Kithure was then the smart guy, who was diplomatic and eloquent. On the other side, Gachagua was the combative, abrasive guy who was Mr. Moneybags. UDA was struggling with campaign financing.
True.
So they needed money. Gachagua had bankrolled UDA for close to a year or two. And being one of the earliest adopters of UDA, it was easier for him to be elevated to the DP position. So President Ruto vetoed himself by choosing Gachagua over Kindiki against popular vote, because all Mount Kenya leaders had voted for Kindiki. It was a vote of close to 11-1. So this rift has not subsided, and it's been on the sidelines. It's just coming up again. That there will always be conflict between Kindiki and Gachagua.
Who do you think is funding this? Is it Kindiki or the president?
Kindiki does not have the money to fund himself.
Or even the state.
He's as poor as a miser. In terms of if we would go with the resources you need in this country to actually run for the presidency.
In the last, when he was being grilled, how much? He had the worth of around 500?
Yeah.
500 million.
That's still poor in regards to the amount of money that Kenyans have already fine-tuned these politicians to be ready to spend. They should be willing to spend close to $1 billion or 7 or 5 billion to campaign for 4 years to become president. He is not close to that money. And that is not something I worship. I really hate the tokenism politics that we have as a country, that we have to wait for politicians to come and give us money. We do not want to listen to their ideologies. We want to see how well oiled their pocket is. And Kindiki finds himself in a hard situation because he is against a man who has the money and the influence and the tribalism. In fact, I think Gachagua is more tribal.
That description is nasty. He has the money, he has the tribalism.
He has the tribalism. I think this is something you cannot really impart in someone. Gachagua has it from heart. I mean, probably has it from his intestines. He has tribalism so deeply ingrained in him that you could not separate the two. Kindiki does not have that. He is struggling to build some tribalism. I hope
Kindiki is struggling to build some
tribalism because he's more liberal and he's smarter. I will give him that. I hope he gets the tribalism faster because I would want to see them fighting tribally and us uniting about tribes. Let it be about them fighting tribally, and as they fight, we will unite on the sidelines, and we will bring to them something they never thought would happen. Like the same way Kibaki was unanimously supported in 2002. As they fight on the fringes, we will fight from the middle, and they will find us there. So hii si Kalonzo ingine, lakini tutapitia hapo katikati. As they fight hapo katikati ya Mount Kenya West na East, we are going to steal their liberal youths, and we are going to steal everyone who is liberal in Mount Kenya, because they have already realized this tribalism does not take us anywhere. We are the ones lamenting from one election cycle to another, and despite having 3 presidents so far and deputy presidents from this region, something has changed, but not everything. We are as poor as other regions in terms of probably they have more roads, but in terms of almost every other infrastructure.
Mount Kenya East, I listened to leaders from Mount Kenya East complaining, and they were saying Mount Kenya West has all the roads, has everything, while Mount Kenya East has literally nothing. Ngaira, you've been a visitor to all those regions.
Yes. You know, Fred, the challenge that we were going to have to deal with is that all this is happening at the expense of the development of our nation and our country. And as Kenyan and as a patriot, I believe that every part of this country deserves to get a moment where they can focus on what matters to their lives, as opposed to what we're being engaged in, even in the first place, and as far as the mountain is concerned. Fred, you realize out of the 7 regions, that is the only place where people are politicking up until today. Yeah. Other people are minding their business. You understand? Even the great Nyanza County is minding its business. But you see here, all the headlines here are about one region.
In fact, Nyanza moved on after Raila lost.
Yeah, they moved on immediately. And I gave you the story of how I was in Kisumu, at an area called Kawash. There was a guy there for the first time. He was not moved that they've lost the election. I think he gotten used to it. And they moved on. You understand? So the mountain will continue to be troubled.
It's unfortunate, as you say, almost all the headlines are just...
And you know, you've just said that he's plotting a tour.
Yeah, Rigathi plots Mount Kenya tour to counter rebels.
Exactly, that means more headlines. And we're going to do that. And James couldn't have put it any better when he said, as they do that, and you're talking about the west and the east, the rest of us, considering, Fred, there's something people are not factoring in. At one point, people thought that Honorable Raila Odinga, for example, if he exits to the African Union, then there will be a gap that this president will have no opponent. But then they were forgetting that we're getting into the 2002 moment, which I think James has alluded to, where the decision was anything but Kanu. You remember that?
Yes.
Anything could have defeated Kanu that year, because the mood of the people was that we need just this government to go. You understand? And we are heading almost there. So as the mountain continues to spend most of its time into this split, which is not going to end soon, because Rigathi Gachagua as a businessman, I can confirm, Fred, he is not somebody that's going to take it lying down, because he has the numbers and the resources. Remember those two things that we said? He has the money to go around, not just the region. So
and he has the backing of, allegedly, he has the backing of the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta.
Not just the former president, what you call the Mount Kenya business community is not in tandem with this president as it stands today. That's why you have the likes of Jimmy Wanjigi and a bunch of other leaders who did not agree with this president even from the very beginning. You understand? They're sitting somewhere, and anything that seems to take anything a vote away from President William Ruto.
The enemy of my enemies, my friend.
Absolutely. And you know very well that they have the resources to actually mount a national campaign. The mountain is not just in the mountain. Down there in Lamu, on the edges of the country's border, there are some mountaineers there.
Yes.
There are mountaineers up there at the top. And so he can do a country-wide campaign, not just to win an election, because I've told you, and I think, Fred, you can read the mood even from most of the people from the mountain. It's no longer about the presidency now. It's about the stake. What stakes can we build in the forthcoming campaign? And even that's what my friend Jeremiah Kioni, the Jubilee SG, has kept on alluding to. That you see going forward, if we are not careful for the next 30 years, we might be out of political power. And so that's why it's important to consolidate our numbers, so that anybody that comes to us does not invite us to their house. They can come to a neutral place where we can say, we're giving you 6 counties and 40 MPs, and this is what you're giving us. And with that in mind, being a businessman, that is actually the motive of this particular president. I will not be surprised if this president does not go to the ballot. Sorry, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua does not go to the ballot. He will make sure he backs somebody to go to the ballot for that cause. And it will happen. So this is bound to stay.
You're saying he will back somebody so that he's again a deputy president?
No, I'm saying he can try that. You know, those are the options on the table. He's a politician, and you know, politics keeps changing on a daily basis. We have 3 years to go, and remember, as it stands today, he still remains the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. You can do a multi-bit. You see what happened in Malawi is that the late vice president who passed on, the one that was running into Lazarus Chakwera, was actually a vice president of President Mutharika. You understand? They won the first term together. Then they fell out midway in that term, and what the vice president did, he moved to the leading opposition and brought his region, and they actually defeated the sitting president. You understand? So that can happen even in this country. Don't forget, out of 7.1 million votes, Fred, 3.4 million votes, which is almost 47.8%, came from one region. This president cannot afford to lose even half of that, because I've continuously told you, where in this country can he go and collect 2 million votes? Absolutely nowhere. You understand? And even the people who had voted for him out of passion, there are those who voted for him because they loved him as a person, but there are those who voted for him because they believed they would change, he would change the system. You know, he was somebody that was supposed to undo the deep state. In my home county there, I have my own uncles who had voted for Raila Odinga for a very long time. One of them is called Moses. He always said, for him, he was talking about land. He was saying, if there's a person that can actually challenge this president on land, is Ruto. That's why I must give him this vote.
Yes.
He was not doing it because he's from Kiambu.
Yes.
He has never met him. He has never eaten 100 shillings for me. It was out of passion. But my brother, if you go to him now, he long changed his mind. And that is part of the almost 250,000 votes that President William Ruto got in Bungoma. You understand? Which is his story.
Yes.
Bungoma was largely a Raila vote, with the exception of the Mount Elgon region, which is a constituency that largely votes the opposite way. But otherwise, 8 out of the 9 constituencies have always been
how does, because it looks as though this could have been started by the president, the rift within the mountain. How does it benefit? How does this...
Ruto is funding Kindiki. I've already said yes.
How does it benefit him? Because all it appears as though it's doing, it's tearing completely the mountain from him.
President William Ruto is a mentee of former President Daniel Arap Moi. Ruto having been part of the Youth for KANU 1992 all through to 2002. He has grown through the corridors of power under Moi's regime, and he understands how to play politics the Moi way, called the Nyayo way. And he's a good student of Moi, and he understood, and he still understands, what Moi had to do to deal with the 1997 situation. And he knows that if a region unites against you, you will lose that region. As I've said, all these guys are tribal. Depends with who is more tribal, who is less tribal. I think of the guys who are more tribal, Gachagua and Ruto top the list, and Raila Apoju. And he understands if the mountain unites behind Rigathi Gachagua, who now does not see eye to eye with Ruto because of several issues they might have differed, that region will give almost all its votes to someone else if Rigathi decides to support someone else. If Rigathi himself decides to become president in 2027, which he wants to be, he is comfortable with working with half the mountain votes. That ensures that Ruto does not win the Mount Kenya region. So Ruto understands this, and he says to himself and to his advisors, because Ruto advises his advisors, let's do this. We are not going to leave Mount Kenya under one guy.
Yes.
It is better if we divided Mount Kenya into several regions. One region under several people, so that none of them can entirely command an entire region. So that now, if they decide to support, if they decide to vie for the presidency, they will be in a catch-22 situation.
So it's a case of divide and rule.
Yeah.
Where the highest risk is at, where a community seemingly having a huge percentage of votes, you don't want, and you've perceived that they are moving away from you, so you divide them.
Yeah, because he understands.
How effective do you think that is going to be in the sense that you can only divide a region when you have a very powerful leader at the top who has a huge clout? Is Kindiki that kind of a leader who would walk away with a huge percentage of the mountain region?
I am very sure, and I'm stating this unequivocally, that the president's favorite was either Kimani Ichung'wah or Ndindi Nyoro, preferably the latter. But Nyoro has already learned what the ground is saying, and is smart enough to distance himself from whatever is happening. He knows that the president and the rest of the country might hype you there, but you have to get backing from the region. His people told him, you're going for the last term as an MP who's among the best performers in this country. That would shake him. And he knows the mood in the mountain, and the people feel played by this government. That is why the Nyeri governor was so vocal on them retaining their CS positions, and he was so vocal on Mount Kenya getting its fair share, because, as Gachagua said, this is a company and we are shareholders, and we feel that we are not getting our due. He understands that. He resonates with Gachagua, but he wants to be loyal to Ruto. And I'm sure Ruto pushed him. Yeah. And I'm sure Ruto pushed him to that. And he's reading the mood in the mountain, and he's not willing to go against his people. Because then that puts him in a situation, the same situation Peter Kenneth had, that you have, you want to go this way, you wanted to disobey Uhuru, if I'm not wrong. But the people tell you, we are behind this person because he is for our cause. So, mpe time yake. So, Ndindi Nyoro understands that. And the people have told him, it appears, even though Gachagua was...
Has he declared what you're saying? Ama, it's just speculation because it's gone quiet.
This is my analysis. This is my analysis. These politicians do not have to say everything. We can read through them. He understands that the mountain now listens to Gachagua, even though for a short time. Maybe this will be short-lived. But the current situation is the people are with Gachagua and the rest of the MPs are with the president.
Are they really, George?
Yes.
Are they really with Gachagua? The people on the ground? No, we keep on saying Mount Kenya. I'm from Mount Kenya and probably I'm reading completely different.
You know, Fred,
from what you're saying.
Fred, every time voters go to an election to support whoever, everybody goes in with his goal of why he's going there. Some people go to vote to elections because our people are voting for that particular person. Others do that because they belong to a certain party, but there's also a section of voters they come in because they believe you can do certain things. All those form what you call the demographics of the voters that go into an election. And so the mountain had people that are going to vote for various reasons at that particular time. Now, years, the elections were hard and then the president was there and then we are 2-3 years into that election. You understand? There were expectations that were met there, or there were expectations that were there both politically, economically, and maybe those in the communities were expecting certain things. Politically then is where the likes of Gachagua and those who are interested in that government come in. There are things they come in and they were hoping would happen. They didn't happen. Or maybe they happened, but it seems like people are turning around. They're turning against them, what you would call betrayal. That automatically changes the mood of that particular person. And it has happened so many times, including this president. Remember, he was a member of ODM. And he was part of the ODM movement. But he changed his mind and moved out because he felt certain expectations. Remember, this president was actually designated to be the prime minister in that ODM order at that particular time. President William Ruto, which was given to Musalia Mudavadi. And there was actually a debate because people were saying Musalia Mudavadi didn't bring any votes to ODM. President William Ruto, because he brought the rift from Nyayo and brought it to ODM, he deserved to be the prime minister, and the deputy prime minister, sorry, in the subsequent turn of events. So sometimes it happens in politics that the political expectations and the interests then change. That already creates a group of individuals that will be looking the other side as we speak now. That's one. Two, there are those ones who voted for this government because they expected that there was going to be some certain changes at their personal level because they believed he might do a better job as opposed to whoever they were competing with. That happened and that candidate won the presidency, but 2-3 years later, that has not happened. That again forms another group of individuals that are not necessarily, that might have changed their minds. That's two. Then three, there are those who are part of the party and were always voting against what you call Baba, who is a player in that election. Today, Baba is in Germany with the president, you understand? And there are people who naturally, they don't like him. So when they see him having touched another area, Fred, they obviously go to another area. So there is no doubt that there's a big chunk of individuals, for whatever reasons, any of those particular reasons, that have since changed their mind. And this deputy president is actually speaking their language. When you look at the tone that this president Deputy President Gachagua has been having the last few months, that's why he kept saying, telling people that mimi nimesikiza ground. He's alluding to it every day. And even the other day, I think he was in one of the constituencies in the mountain there, and people were asking him for roads. Go check what he answered them with that clip. He was saying, I don't want to promise you a road yet, I'm not sure if it will be funded. I don't want people to come here and come check the road and then realize there's nothing that has been done and then they bring it to me, because he knows that is what is currently happening with the ghost projects. You understand? So there's a bunch of people in that region, for whatever reasons, are now isolated. And as a politician, we always say that you need a base. That becomes his primary base. Those who feel betrayed and those who are now feel like the expectations what they had of this government have not been achieved. Fred, that's an audience that he has to do these tours and get fast, which could be very sizable. You understand? Those who feel that the government has betrayed them, or President William Ruto has betrayed them, or they have not kept their promises. So it is a fact, Fred, there's no debate about it.
That the region has moved.
There's a rift.
There's a good chunk that has moved.
And
do you think the appointments that were made in the cabinet, because I believe, the appointments that were made were meant to lure Luo Nyanza into this government to cover this exodus of people from Mount Kenya?
Fred, President William Ruto, President Uhuru Kenyatta had a handshake with Raila Odinga, but there were no cabinet slots and appointments for ODM. In this particular type of handshake, ODM is fully in the government, the cabinet minister.
Yes.
So the entrenchment is even more visible than what was there in the previous government. Friend, there are people, I have some friends of mine in Karatina market where there used to be a hotel, I don't know where you see, they're called Starbucks, if you've been to Karatina town. I always used to go there whenever I had a relative of mine who was staying at Karatina University, so I would be a regular visitor there as a guardian, because he was from the village and his parents would not be there regularly. So I had some friends there, and every time we'd have this debate, is that then he would go there and hear what the mountain is saying. Those guys today, as it speaks, the last thing they wanted to hear is that there's ODM in the cabinet. I know them.
Yes.
I know them, and I'm sure such an appointment to them is not good news to hear that ODM has 6 MPs in a cabinet.
What I'm asking, did the appointment into the cabinet have the kind of impact that would actually get Luo Nyanza?
Yes.
Because now, President William Ruto, who had been painted as a demon in Luo Nyanza, is right now being hailed as a knight.
The bunge la wananchi in Jivanji is quite interesting actually, because it is a representation of citizens from across all the counties in Kenya. And I have been to the bunge la wananchi so many times in the recent months and weeks, I cannot count. And I have listened to them. Sometimes I just sit there and listen. And I'm telling you, Luo Nyanza and the western side of Kenya has shifted. I hate to break
shifted
it to you. Shifted to Ruto.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Even as the percentage is hived from Mount Kenya, there's a huge percentage. Maybe his equation was really, he's done his mathematics right.
And I think, Fred, in terms of strategy, I think this president has appreciated that his core base that elected him into government in the previous regime, there is no doubt that is clearly running out.
Yes.
And I think the easiest target to be able to compensate that would be the western region.
Yes.
President William Ruto is actually from western Kenya, the way you said the other time.
Yeah.
You know, that region is only that sometimes you narrow down to ethnic community.
Yes.
You start saying West Nyanza, but that's western Kenya.
Yes.
Fred, we border the Kalenjin community right from Vihiga into Kakamega. My own ward is called Chemuche. It's a Kalenjin name because we are on the border with the Nandi.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
In my ward, half of my ward, because it has a lower end and an upper end, we are on the lower end, but the upper end is what borders the Nandi escarpment. In Nandi County, we have 7 MCAs who are actually Luyas because they are on that edge of that border. So that street people that live along that road, that's why my road is called Skhendu Tarbo Road. On Skhendu side is where our farm is.
In the whole?
Skhendu.
Skhendu.
Tarbo.
The road.
Oh, you know, you're saying it.
Skhendu. You know, exactly.
Yes.
You got it right. So when you say local, that's how it sounds.
Yes.
But in pure Kiswahili, it's Skhendu.
Yes.
So we are on this side of the road, and then Tarbo is on the other end. President William Ruto lives on this end, we live on this end. It's the same road. So he's a Westerner. So he easily relates with that particular region. It's an issue that could very easily attract his attention. He only just needs to show his goodwill. And when you top that to the fact that I'm telling you, the Nyanza region has accepted that Raila Odinga is exiting the political state. It's now clear. Even if he doesn't wish at 80 years or 83, nature just retires him. So there's a good sizable number of people that have appreciated that, and they're developing a mindset that even me nowadays I tend to have. I say, listen, I might not like this government. I'm not a fan of William Ruto at all. But if William Ruto was to say that he's coming to my village to actually launch a real road and it's going to be tarmac and lights just to impress us, let me do it because it's our taxes. I do not have to support him. But you see, it's part of the benefit that you get by doing that. So there are people who are saying President William Ruto is investing big in the Nyanza region, the western region, to be able to cover on what he's losing on the other side, which is politically tactfully right, because then there's no debate about whether he's losing support. The support is gone. And that becomes an easy, low-hanging fruit, because that is an area, those 3 communities have lived together for decades. In fact, at
the Kalenjin, the Luya, and the Luo.
In fact, when you come to a place where it's called Nyangori High School, just when you're Kisumu, you're dropping into Kisumu town, an area called Kiboswa. There's a roundabout there. On this side is Kisumu Town West. On this side is Vihiga's Hamisi constituency, and this side is Aldai, where Mary Keitany is the MP. Same area. If you just cross like where her brother is there, you're in a different constituency. When you cross like this, you're in Western. When you drop just 10 meters of the roundabout, you're in Nyanza. That region, there is no exclusivity. Those people have lived together. That's why you find a person like me, I'm called George Oyuka Gaira. In Luya, Yuka is Yoha. Coming back, are you coming back? But it's not so different from Oyugi and Omkundi. So if we sit together, you might think we are all from the same region. And I think it happens even in Masinga, where you have the Kamba and the Kikuyu community, the way they intermarry, and even Tharaka. You can never tell. I have a friend of mine called Kasiuki. He speaks both Kikuyu and Kamba fluently because he grows on that particular border. So President William Ruto finds this as a very low-hanging fruit, and I think those, based on the kind of politics that has been there, considering Nyanza has never seen the kind of developments they've seen the last 5 years. Starting with President Uhuru Kenyatta. The roads, the railway line, the port there now has been refurbished. Those kind of billions of shillings have never been witnessed, Fred, since independence, isn't it? After the fallout of President Kenyatta and Jaramogi Oginga. Now look at Homa Bay. The president has been to Homa Bay almost 6 times. And now he has told them he's bringing a ferry. I was telling them, once they do a ferry on the Rusinga Island, because that's a game changer. Because there are people there saying, you know, we've fought for this country for too long. Let other people do it.
Who gave them the MV2? It was launched yesterday.
Just the one that was launched yesterday.
Absolutely. So that region, there are people who would positively respond to that. And even me, I would urge my people. You see, when someone does development, we don't have to like him. But for as long as there are taxes, he can just come and open the roads. We need an airport there. Do it. And there are those who will buy into that. So that's why you saw the response the president got the other day. And I think if Raila Odinga makes it to the AU, he might even entrench himself further into that particular region. And the likes of the Gachagua are aware of it.
Mount Kenya is used to the trappings of power. And power is sweet. Because it comes with projects, comes with goodies, comes with so many of your people being employed into government. Because if you look at the audit that has been done on the employment ethnically across the country, you would understand and see that in the public sector, most of those that make the biggest chunk of government and state officers and civil servants are from 2 tribes. Largely the Kalenjin community, having Moi for 24 years, and the Kikuyu community, having 3 presidents over. I don't know, probably if I was from that region and I was not as liberal as I am today, I would probably be supporting Gachagua, because they understand that we've enjoyed this. We cannot not have this. As I've said before, Central Kenya is a region that experiences, is one of the regions that experiences high amounts of rainfall, but has more dams than the arid regions. Central Kenya has more roads than any other province in this country. And they understand we have had this because we are always in power, either as deputy presidents, vice presidents, or as presidents. We cannot lose this. And Gachagua understands that, and that's why they resonate with him, because he is giving them another option, and he's saying we have to come together under one cause, whether Mount Kenya West or Mount Kenya East. But then the president knows what Gachagua is saying is right, because they are both tribal. And he knows Gachagua is right. But he does not want that, because Gachagua would have so much influence, added and topped up to the money he already has. And that is what the problem is. And see, the people from Mount Kenya are not happy that ODM came into government. And they were not happy with Uhuru bringing Raila into government. And that also angered Ruto, who was the deputy president then. It is part of the reason why Deputy President Ruto decampaigned Uhuru and went against his boss. Well, tenders and other disagreements notwithstanding. But you see, it's part of the reason. And it is part of the reason now Gachagua is against this president.
It's all business.
He sees we are not going to gain anything as a region, because keki ilikuwa half, sahi ni 3/4, ka-quarter coming to Central. And you see, that doesn't please him, and doesn't please the Mount Kenya people. That
so it has, now. The current war has nothing to do with your ordinary mwananchi. It has just personal
It is
business.
their interest, because Gachagua has people who want tenders from government. Himself, he wants tenders from government. And this is not something new. There is a conflict of interest between these politicians and government. Ruto himself probably did so many tenders in Uhuru's time. It is alleged that he did do you call it the relocation or the change from the former wooden electric poles to now the concrete poles countrywide?
Those are allegations that, you know, we cannot...
Yeah.
We cannot...
Fred, listen, Kenya is at a point where now we are beginning to have a new profile of voters that are coming in. And this president is aware of that he can no longer sell a lie and he just goes unchecked. That's why he goes to Germany, purports to have signed an employment deal to hire 200,000 people. 20 minutes later, a Gen Z shows a different document. That, you know, there's no such a thing that is right. So we are heading towards very interesting times. And then you have a president that is also trying to realign himself. The deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, is also very aware that things are going to change, so he has to build his base. This is going to proceed as planned, because then going into the next election, any politician has one duty to survive. And I think Rigathi Gachagua and both the president have to survive, only that it's going to happen at the expense of his government and service to the people of Kenya.
See,
as we bring this to a close.
See, as Senior Ngaira has said, it's about their interests and it's about their political relevance going into the future. Because politics goes into perpetuity probably till you die. See, someone like Raila Odinga has decided he's not going to retire. So we have a president who's been scheming on tribal lines before the Gen Zs happened. This is something that has not started today or last year or last month. It is something that was brewing from as early as 2022. And it will not stop now that we have the Gen Zs. But I'm seeing leaders try to align themselves with the Gen Z movement going forward, and Ruto is already doing that. Explain to me what Osoro was doing with Kasmuel the other day. Well, I've called out Kasmuel severally. I also called out Anini. I called out Masi Tarus. I called out Morara Kebaso, but people do not listen. They do not want objectivity. They do not want to do their due diligence. They do not question the consistency of these fellows. They do not question whose allegiance these people, whose allegiance these people
You want to say they're looking for
class.
good also.
The political class are looking to gain votes from the Gen Zs. And I would not be shocked that they start speaking an untribal language and trying to appeal to the Gen Z masses and showing them that we understand you, we feel you, we want to be part of you, we want to bring you to government. See, there's a video that is circulating of Morara and Ruto being on atop vehicles, launching a certain project somewhere, and now he's de-launching the projects. These people have been together. And when I tell people these things, they don't see them, and they see them too late. We followed Raila Odinga to his political grave. We followed someone for far too long, gave him a godlike following and worshipping, and that has ruined us. You are going to give that to Morara, and it will ruin you.
What is leadership? They say it's the ability to influence people to a certain direction, whether good or bad. And unfortunately or fortunately, we have a lot of this kind of people in our country who have the power and the ability to influence people. But now we need to look at good leadership, because until this country gets a good leader, I listened to somebody from Dubai arguing with somebody from Nigeria, and he was telling the Nigerian, you guys have everything. You have oil more than we do. You have, and he mentioned all the resources that Nigeria has. Then he said, we only have this, but we have a good leader. And the difference between Dubai and Nigeria and Kenya rotates on only one thing.
Leadership.
Leadership. We have gold in Kenya. We have oil in Kenya.
Titanium.
We have titanium. We have cobalt
Niobium.
in Kenya. We have minerals untold in this country. But one thing we have missed is a leader who can be able to utilize the resources that we have to improve the lives of the people he leads. Most of the leaders we get are men who come to improve the lives of their families, their own selves and their families, period. They don't care about what is happening on the ground. So we really have to think. They say, when you do the same thing over and over and over again and expect different results, you're psycho. You're mad. But we've been doing that from 1963. let this be different. Let's get a leader who's going to literally change our country. We have everything. We literally have everything. Ask yourself, why is Turkana still dry? Well, we have an aquifer underground that can water this country for the next 93 years if we don't use any other water resources. Think. With that, we bring the curtains down on this show and we tell you, man, we simply have to think and bring in good leaders who will transform our country for the betterment of everybody. Do have yourself a lovely morning. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.